This episode may contain content of a graphic nature, including descriptions of physical and sexual violence against adults, children, and animals. Listener discretion is advised. Hi everyone, I'm Talia.
And I'm Tanya.
And together we are Crimes and Consequences, a true crime podcast.
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Crimes and Consequences. I'm Tanya.
And I'm Talia.
And we're just a couple of friends who like to discuss true crime.
It's true. And lawyers.
Yes.
So we're together
as well.
We work together.
So before I get into today's story, I would just like to remind everyone to hit like or subscribe or follow on whatever app. If you're watching us on YouTube, thank you to True Crime Daily for hosting us. And today's story is really kind of gruesome. It is an older story, but if you were a fan of American Horror Story,
I am.
was too. You may have remembered this character from one of the seasons. So
Which one is this?
This one is about Madame LaLaurie.
Oh, the Coven. What is it?
It was Coven. Yeah, Coven. It was the Coven season. So if you remember her, Kathy Bates played her.
Oh, yeah. Love Kathy.
She did a wonderful job, but she's an amazing actress. But anyway, so in 1834, chaos engulfed a mansion located at 1140 Royal Street in New Orleans, French Quarter. And flames just consumed this mansion. And as it's on fire, yeah, it's burning, like going up. And concerned neighbors rushed over to try and help. And they were looking for the mistress of the house, who was Madame LaLaurie.
Madame LaLaurie.
Yes, Madame LaLaurie. And what they found was just truly horrific.
See, I don't know the true story of this. I just know the American Horror Story version.
Right. And it was pretty, I believe it's probably pretty close to all the rumors.
I didn't even know it was a true story.
Yeah, I know. It's messed up.
Oh, gosh. So this is really gruesome.
Yeah, it's really gruesome. It's really sad. And Madame LaLaurie is a name that is infamous in New Orleans. Like if you go there on a trip and you want to do like a haunted tour or something like that, I know you will go by this mansion.
Okay.
So I'm going to tell you a little bit about her. She was born Delphine LaLaurie in 1775 during the Spanish colonial period. She was born into privilege in New Orleans. She belonged to an affluent white Creole family with roots touching back to Ireland. As a second generation American, she inherited a legacy of wealth and status in New Orleans. She rose to prominence as the wife of a physician and plantation owner, Dr. Louis LaLaurie. And she resided in this opulent mansion in the French Quarter.
That's a big word.
Yeah. I mean, her life just seemed to be very glamorous. She, lived a life of refinement, luxury. However, there were whispers of cruelty and depravity going on in her home. Her infamous reputation stemmed from the things that unfolded behind closed doors. And I'm going to get into it.
I have so many questions already, but I'll keep my mouth shut.
The mansion at 1140 Royal Street is a notorious landmark. You can visit it today. Like I said, it did burn down, but eventually it was rebuilt. And it was not only known for its historical significance, but it was a beautiful place. She was married 3 times. So I'm going to get into that. Her first husband, she married on June 11th, 1800, and she was only 13.
What?
Well, it was a different time.
13.
It's a different time back then.
I have a child that's almost 13.
I know, right?
I can't even imagine. Can you imagine Avi married?
No.
Oh, hell no.
I know. Setting up a house.
No.
She can't even get to school on time.
Okay, we're gonna cut that from this.
She married a man. His name was Don Ramon de Lopez y Antiguo. I'm sorry, I'm mispronouncing it. He was a high-ranking Spanish royal officer. And they got married at the St. Louis Cathedral in New Orleans. Louisiana had become a Spanish colony in the 1760s after France was defeated in the Seven Days War.
I didn't realize that. I always thought it was French.
Me too. I always thought it was French. I didn't realize. Must have forgot that part in my history classes because I'm positive we learned about it, right?
Probably
like in 8th grade or something. I don't know.
Sleeping.
In 1804, after the American acquisition of the territory, Don Ramon was appointed as Consul General for Spain in the territory of Orleans. While en route to Madrid with Delphine, who was then pregnant, and this is Madame LaLaurie, but she was Delphine back then, Don Ramon suddenly died in Havana. A few days after his death, Delphine gave birth to their daughter.
Oh, that's sad.
Yeah, I know. That is sad. She had to endure this, and she's just a child, right?
Right. Oh.
I mean, I'm not sure how old he was, but he was old enough to be an officer. Right. He's probably quite a bit older with her. I'm not judging. It was different back then, right?
Different times.
And their daughter, she had nicknamed Borquita. So the widowed Delphine and her child returned to New Orleans. In June 1808, around the age of 21 now, Delphine got remarried to a man named Jean Blanc, and he was a prominent banker, merchant, lawyer, and legislator. At the time of their marriage, Blanc purchased a house at 409 Royal Street in New Orleans for the family, which was later known as the Villa Blanc.
Wow.
Sounds
I
pretty
need a name
fancy,
for
right?
my place.
I know.
Okay.
I know, you just reminded me. So I live in like suburbs. I live in a subdivision, and I remember a neighbor around the corner named their house, and they had like a little sign out front. And,
okay.
And it's the same house I live in, like
same
the
style.
model. Yeah. I was just kind of like,
whatever.
Rolling my eyes, but whatever. Delphine bore 4 children with her second husband.
So she had 5.
Yes. At this point, she's got, at that point, by the time her fourth child with Mr. Blanc came, she had 5 children. And he passed away only 8 years after they were married in 1816. So now she's having to once again navigate widowhood and try to get through life. With 5 children. But she's rich.
Okay.
So she has servants, and back then they weren't even really servants. They were slaves. So she had enslaved people in her home. A few years later, it was almost 9. Her third husband, she married him in June of 1825.
That's a physician?
Yes, and that is the physician Leonard Louis Nicholas LaLaurie. And he was 15 years younger than she was.
What?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, and he married a lady with 5 kids.
Because she had money.
Yeah, probably.
I mean, I don't know. They could have been in love.
I mean, he probably had money too, but
That's true.
But
I don't know.
Money married money back then, I think.
I don't know.
15
years, good for her.
Yeah, good for her. And during this marriage in 1831, this is when they acquired the property at 1140 Royal Street. And Madame LaLaurie, she managed that property with very little help from her husband. She was like the ruling hand in that home.
Was it a big house?
Yeah, it was a big house. It had a couple stories. It was huge. There will be pictures that are being shown during this episode and on our episode notes. It was big home. The following year, after they bought this property, she oversaw construction of a 2-story mansion on the property, like I said. And
on the property?
Yeah, because I don't think it was as big when they first bought it, so they improved upon it.
Okay.
While they were the year after that they bought it, and it also came complete. I mean, once the construction was over, with slave quarters. Delphine, along with her third husband and 2 of her daughters, established their residence at this mansion, and this is where they became really prominent. I mean, they already were, but I think it was probably maybe the biggest house.
Really?
Yeah, in that area in the French Quarter at the time. What you thought was maybe marital bliss was short-lived, as signs of problems between Delphine and her younger husband emerged. On November 16th, 1832, Delphine filed for a separation.
Really?
Yeah. Citing...
Back then?
Citing that Dr. LaLaurie had intolerant treatment of her.
What's that
So
mean?
I don't know. I think maybe
Irreconcilable differences?
probably, or he just didn't treat her very well.
Well,
I don't know. It's probably contemptuous, I'm thinking. I don't know. This petition that she filed was supported by her children from her previous marriages. And despite this legal action, though, Dr. LaLaurie was present at the mansion on April 10th, 1834, the day of the infamous fire. So I don't know if he was probably supposed to not be there anymore. I don't know. I did not research the legal records from 200 years ago. But this event marked another tragic turn, the fire, because Dr. LaLaurie, he did not make it out
what?
Of the mansion. He passed away in the fire.
He died in the fire?
He died in the fire. So now she's a third-time widow.
And she's lost her house.
She lost her house, and all of her horrible shit comes out. I mean, she had this, like I said, she had this facade of fine refinement and, prominence in the community, in the high society, and this fire just blew the lid off of all of that.
Oh, I can't wait to hear.
Oh, I know. I'm going to get into it, but not yet. I'm keeping you on the edge of your seat. In 1831, she seized upon an opportunity to establish roots in the heart of New Orleans, and this was her opportunity to do that by getting this mansion in the French Quarter. And like many affluent women in her era, she, like I told you earlier, she had enslaved individuals. It was common practice back then in the South. Despite the prevailing social norms of this, her treatment of her slaves initially appeared, benevolent to outsiders. Like they thought, when she was in public, she had this facade of kindness and politeness toward enslaved servants. She earned praise from her seemingly compassionate demeanor, and she even took the extraordinary step of freeing two of her enslaved individuals.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And that garnered some admiration from others in the quarter because they were like, oh, she's so kind,
She's even setting them free.
She's even setting them free, right? Like, oh, isn't she a great person? But like I said, underneath this seemingly, it was just a mask. It was a masquerade, right? And even though people the outward image of her and people seeing oh, she's kind and she, whatever on the outside when she was in public, there were whispers behind her back of, that there was darker things happening.
Well, yeah, if she's and I don't even know, but if she's torturing them and stuff, somehow it's going to get out.
Yeah.
It's going to get out.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So... they in the rumors. I mean, what else do people have to do back then? But gossip about one another.
Just like now.
Right. Now you just turn on TV and hear gossip about famous people. She probably would have been front page news on all the tabloid shows and
celebrity show,
right,
reality show.
Oh my God, did you hear what the latest rumor of what's going down at Madame LaLaurie's mansion? Madame LaLaurie. So accounts of the treatment of her slaves between 1831 and 1834 vary. So obviously, some of this is rumor, some of this is, based on witness testimony or witness accounts. So, but there was a woman named Harriet Martineau. She wrote in 1838, she recounted the tales told to her by New Orleans residents during a visit that she had to the city in 1836. And one of the things she wrote that people were telling her their slaves were, quote, singularly haggard and wretched. I mean, that was pretty flowery language.
Yeah, what does that mean?
So, I know, I'm going to tell you. So, despite her seemingly polite in outward in society, she seemed to care about the health of her enslaved people, but
It was all for show.
Yeah, it was all for show. Funeral registers between 1830 and 1834 document the death of 12 slaves at the Royal Street Mansion.
From what years? How many years?
4. I think that's a lot of people. I mean, I don't know how many enslaved persons she had to start with, but
That's
12
true.
people
That's
in
a
4
lot.
years
Yeah.
is a lot.
That's a lot.
Although their cause of death wasn't mentioned, and at the time, infectious diseases could have been the culprit, but there were 12 deaths that included a cook, a laundress, and her 4 children.
What?
Yeah.
Her 4 children?
Her 4 children, the laundress, not Madame LaLaurie's. No.
Oh.
And one of these slaves was a person who he seemed to be a chronic runaway. Like that was a note that was made on probably the sale records.
Why would he want to run away if he was
exactly
treated so well?
Yeah, if he's treated so well. Yeah, no. Court records at the time showed that, like I mentioned earlier, she freed 2 slaves. And that reporter, Martineau, she wrote that public rumors about Madame LaLaurie's mistreatment of slaves on her property were sufficiently widespread that a local lawyer was dispatched to the Royal Street Mansion, like to kind of check up on her treatment of slaves.
Really?
Yeah, there were laws on the books at the time.
Of how you can treat them.
Yeah, of how you can treat them. Like you were not supposed to mistreat them. So he visited her mansion and he didn't find any evidence of any wrongdoing or mistreatment because I'm sure it wasn't out in the open, right?
Right.
At one point it came to the point where people weren't seeing Madame LaLaurie's slaves, and
they weren't out in public.
They weren't
anymore?
out in public, or there was less of them being out in public. And that really struck the local community as a little bit unsettling. Of course, firing the rumor mill, right? Making people suspicious and wondering what the hell's going on. I mean, they're either thinking either she doesn't have any money anymore or what's going on. Like, why doesn't she have as many slaves at her home? Because they're just not seeing them.
So this is in the later times?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the fire was in 1835, so we're getting to like the later years, like 1834, 1835, like leading up to
the fire.
Leading up to the fire. So determined to uncover the truth, a group of locals banded together and they embarked on a mission to go check out this estate. So they approached the mansion, ready to confront whatever they found.
But you have these rumors of her mistreating them, and now they're not being seen in public.
Yes. Yeah. So it's making people wonder what the hell
is going on.
Yeah. So the day of the fire, this was April 10th, 1834. I'm sorry, I misspoke. It was 1834, not 1835. A fire erupted at the mansion, like I mentioned before, and it originally it originated in the kitchen. When authorities arrived on the scene, and when the neighbors and everybody, they encountered a harrowing sight.
Well, you got to tell me.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, there was a cook, and she was 70. She was chained to the stove by her ankle.
What?
And she revealed that she had set the fire in a very desperate attempt to end her life because she was fearing a severe punishment that was upcoming.
Worse than dying by fire.
Yeah. What could you, right?
Wow.
Because that's not an easy death,
Wow.
right? Yeah. She'd rather die by fire than face whatever punishment that was coming her way. Additional reports from the New Orleans Bee of April 11th, 1834 detailed disturbing discoveries made by bystanders that were responding to the blaze. People had to by force get into this home, and they just encountered, as I mentioned at the top of this episode, it was just gruesome. They found 7 slaves, more or less horribly mutilated.
Mutilated?
They were suspended by their necks.
What?
With their limbs seemingly stretched and torn. Yeah. And the individuals they found, these 7 people.
Were they alive?
Yes, they were alive, and they seem to have been confined there for months in that way. I know. Like, this makes me want to cry. This is just horrible.
How'd she keep them alive, though? Force feed them?
I have no idea. That's a good question, actually. I don't know if, like, her husband, the doctor, had anything to do with it.
You think he might be involved?
I don't know, because, I mean, they were having this marital discord, right? He's supposed to be out of the house, but...
Why is he there?
Why is he there? I mean, this story in history books or online that you want to find, I mean, it's mostly centered about her doing this, but I don't know.
How would he not know this?
How would he not know?
How would he not know?
Right.
That's fucking new.
Yeah. I know. That's why I'm like, I don't know if he's an innocent bystander in all this. Among those who entered the mansion was Judge Jean-Francois Cagnoni. I don't know how to say it.
Wow. I was really impressed for a second.
I was, I should just fake it and not say that I don't know how to pronounce it. It's French. I'm sorry. He testified to finding enslaved individuals wearing iron collars and bearing deep wounds. And when questioned, Dr. LaLaurie, he responded just insolently. And he said that, basically you should mind your own business.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm. And this obviously is before he passed away in the fire. So this kind of, suggests like...
He knew. That's what I'm saying. He knew.
He knew.
And you should mind your own business.
Yeah, don't worry about what I'm doing in my own home with my own... Slaves, right? So, yeah. A version of the story circulated in 1836. So you find these people with the iron chains, the iron collars, and that added further details. It was recounted by the reporter Martineau, saying that they found emaciated slaves that were flayed with a whip. Yeah. Bound in restrictive postures. Mm-hmm. So I'm thinking uncomfortably bound in a position, that was extremely uncomfortable, and wearing spiked iron collars. Oh. Yeah, so the spikes were like on the inside.
What the fuck, Tanya?
I know. I told you this is terrible.
Man.
This is terrible. It gets a little worse too, so I'm sorry.
What?
Yeah, it gets worse than this. So following the revelation of the abused slaves, this is when an angry mob basically descends upon this residence.
So it's a burning house.
Yeah.
And they're putting out the fire and there's an angry mob trying to check it out, right?
Yeah. Yes. It's just chaos. Yeah. Okay. Try to picture this. It's just chaos going on. And these slaves were taken to a local jail for public viewing. And that...
What?
The ones that, they found.
For public viewing? Yeah, what does that mean?
Like, to show them off, I guess is probably the awful way to say it. But the crowd was up to 4,000 people. Yeah, people, they wanted, okay, you think about it. Something horrible has happened to someone. And people, you think about public executions and things like that. Like, it draws a crowd.
4,000.
Not to be sick, but like it really does draw a crowd, at least back then, right? Like, it's like a car accident or a train wreck. Like, you can't look away,
right. That's a lot of people.
Yeah, it is a lot of people. And unfortunately, later it was reported that 2 of the slaves that were being put on display did pass away from their injuries. And furthermore, during subsequent investigations, it was found that the yard of the mansion was just littered. I guess littered is probably the wrong word, but it was used as a burying ground for many, many people. And I'm guessing these are many of the enslaved people. And instead of having like the 12 that I told you passed away that were recorded, there were even more, I'm thinking, that were not recorded, that probably passed away with no record of how they died. The reporter Martineau, she recounted other tales of Madame LaLaurie's cruelty.
I don't think I need to know. I want to know, but go ahead.
One was a story, like, and these were things that people witnessed. So one was a story that she found out about, and it was the encounter. There was an 8-year-old slave named Leah, and Leah jumped to her death off the roof of the mansion while trying to avoid punishment from a whip-wielding Madame LaLaurie. This poor child leapt to her death.
That makes me so sad.
I know.
She's only 8.
She's only 8. I mean, it's just sad. And according to the reporter, this incident led to an investigation of the LaLaurie's, and they were found guilty of illegal cruelty, and they were forced to forfeit 9 slaves in their household.
So they must have had a lot.
Oh, they had to have had a lot, right? That's what I'm thinking. Like, they had a lot, so when people were not appearing in public anymore, because I'm thinking, you know, she probably had slaves that ran errands and probably were her, you know, household ones.
And then the yard.
She doesn't have, you know, she doesn't have like a plantation like in the heart of the French Quarter.
That's what I was trying to figure out.
Yeah.
So what did they need all these slaves for?
Right.
But if you're forfeiting 9 slaves for your house.
Like maybe because Dr.
I have
LaLaurie.
one clean
Yeah, I know.
lady.
I'm thinking Dr. LaLaurie did have a plantation because he did own one. It probably was at a later or at a different spot that maybe they all lived in the mansion.
Slave quarters?
Yeah, in the slave quarters. So I'm not sure though. I mean, I'm purely speculating. However, these 9 people were bought back by the LaLaurie's through an intermediary relative, and they were returned to the Royal Street residence. So even though these 9 people were probably slightly relieved to
be away,
they
got back. Oh.
They were purchased again and brought back to the home.
That's so sad.
Yeah. I mentioned to you already that she chained her cook, the 70-year-old cook, to the stove, and Madame LaLaurie would beat the cook's children when they attempted to try and like sneak food out of the house to feed,
to help her.
Yeah, or to feed the other slaves. Like in the quarters, so they would get beaten. And she didn't necessarily always beat the cook who was making the food, but beat her daughters for giving it away. So these rumors are swirling, you know, and they're faced, and they're faced with just this grim truth. Sorry, I should stop it.
Just noticed for some reason you don't normally do that.
I don't normally do that. So you think that the laws are made, like I told you, this lawyer shows up to the mansion. These laws are made to try and protect the enslaved individuals. You think that they're being protected by these laws, but then you find out stuff that's happening like this. Some of the worst things that they found out about, there were, not only were the slaves, like the ones they found had, besides the ones I've described, they had signs of torture, of beatings, there were scars, there were just disfigurements, all kinds of things. But there were some that were found, like the mutilations. Some of the slaves had their eyes gouged out.
Oh, no.
Their skin was flayed. Their mouths were filled with excrement and then sewn shut.
What?
Yes.
What the fuck?
Yeah, they had people that had their mouths sewn shut. And so you can only imagine,
I just need 1 second.
Yeah, you can imagine the torture.
That is literally a horror movie.
Yeah, it is. It is.
I hate this woman.
I know.
I hate her.
And probably the most disturbing.
What?
Yeah. Were reports of the individuals who were then subjected to just sadistic and grotesque forms of physical deformation. One account described a woman whose bones had been broken and then reset in a grotesque imitation of a crab. And I was trying to picture this. Like, were they set backwards? Were they set forwards? I don't know. Like, I really didn't want to think too hard about it because it just was extremely upsetting to even think about.
That sounds like something a doctor would do.
Right? Like, how do you know how to do it? Exactly. Another spoke of a woman that was encased in human intestines.
What the fuck?
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry.
I know.
What the fuck?
I know.
What?
I know. Like, what?
What?
Like, I can't even picture this in my mind. I'm glad I can't picture
around.
it. Yeah. Yeah, just,
Okay.
yeah. Another report described individuals with holes drilled in their skulls alongside wooden spoons that were supposedly meant to stir the inside, like in your brain. So I don't know if these were people that were then incapacitated and they were still kept alive. And then for shits and giggles, people did this. I don't know. Like, I don't know.
And we're like, this is all based on what people have seen.
Yes.
How could somebody see that and not report
Well,
it?
I mean, they did report it, but I would think that a lot of these people probably died from their injuries.
Well, yeah.
Right? I can't imagine being strung up by my neck and my arms being pulled and stretched and for months and then still surviving.
I just can't imagine.
They were, were they fed and given water?
That's
like, how sick?
Understand. That's why the physician had to have been part of it.
Right. Or how the person with their mouth sewn shut, how do you keep that person alive? You can't, you have to eat and drink at some point. I don't know. I don't want to think about it.
Let's move on.
Yeah. The precise,
I'm afraid.
I mean, there was also rumors that she would use the blood of like babies to moisturize her face to try to keep her looking young. I mean, I don't know. Yeah. It was, the things that she supposedly did were just awful. The precise number of victims is really unknown. Some say there was only a handful of bodies, while others said, there was just hundreds of unfortunate people who succumbed to their torture and, horrible conditions at her house. But regardless of the exact amount, the discovery of these gruesome things are just,
so some of it is for sure factual.
Yeah, some of it is for sure factual. And it just made her an infamous, like her infamy grew from these accounts, and it's part of the lore of New Orleans French Quarter. Sorry.
That's okay.
Yeah. There were rumors that she had secret slaves. So it wasn't only what people found, I guess. There was also secretly hidden slaves. I don't know if that's true. Saying that, some of them, that her husband were victim, like he practiced voodoo medicine, and some of them fell victim to that. I don't know if that's part of the lore, but that was a rumor that people said. So there was, weird things going on with that. I have no idea. And just so you think, like, even if you think that Madame LaLaurie's children escaped some of this abuse,
she abused them too.
Yeah. They were beaten if they showed any kind of compassion toward the slaves in the home. So it's just like the sickest story. I mean, it's terrible. So they were, when you grew up in that house, you had to be cruel too, I guess.
Or else you would get.
Yeah, you would get punished severely.
Beat.
Right, exactly. So you're probably wondering, like, what happened to her?
Yeah.
So they have the fire, and she escapes the fire.
But he doesn't.
No, he doesn't. She ends up fleeing to Paris.
Oh, because she knew she was up shit creek.
Mm-hmm. So she escaped out of this. The mansion's on fire, smoldering, and she disappears with her driver. Something, it's like a coach, stayed like a horse and buggy coach, something, that they escaped, her and her driver, that she just like got the hell out of Dodge, right? The rest of her life is pretty much just shrouded in mystery. There were accounts from that reporter from 1838, so a few years after the fire, saying that, she fled, she made her way to the waterfront, she made her way to Paris, going through, other channels, other states.
She had money.
Yeah, she had money.
She took her money with her.
Mm-hmm. But when the reporter visited this Royal Street mansion in 1836, she said, nobody lived there. So there definitely was mean, there was no repairs being made and everything. So definitely no one was there anymore. I don't know what happened to her children, but she did exile herself to Paris. The rest of her life, like I said, is mysterious. She lived in Paris with her mother and her two sisters, Pauline and Laura. One of her sons said that she wanted to come back. Like, he wrote a letter to, I think, one of the brother-in-laws and said that Madame LaLaurie wanted to come back to New Orleans, but, it just wasn't.
It wasn't a good idea.
It wasn't a good idea.
Not a good idea.
No. So after that, in about 1888, there was a widely circulated story that said that she met her end in France.
She met who?
Her end, her death.
Okay.
Yes. Due to, it was a boar hunting accident, so a big pig. That's how she met her end. However, in the 1930s, someone was in the St. Louis cemetery in France, and they found a stone.
They had her name on it?
They had her name on it in the cemetery. And the inscription said, Madame LaLaurie, Née Marie Delphine McCarty. Née means, born, right? Your maiden name, N-E-E. Indicating that her death was in Paris on December 7th, 1842. And the age was left incomplete on the headstone. It had a 6 and then like a blank.
What year was she born? How old was she? Like in her 50s, probably?
60s. And so there was, later on, it was found in records in the French archives of Paris, saying that she died on December 7th, 1849 at the age of 62.
Okay.
But no one knows.
The boar accident.
I know, that seems weird, right?
62 years old out hunting boars?
I know.
I don't think so. She didn't.
Who is she with, right?
What? No.
I mean, her husband's dead. It's not like she's going on a hunting expedition in 1840 something, right? Women didn't do that. I don't know. Maybe they did.
Maybe she needed to kill something.
Maybe. But anyway, they don't know. So if you do ever go to New Orleans,
I want to. I've never been.
I know, I've never been either. I really would like to go. You can go on like haunted tours and things like that. And one of the places that you will visit if you do is the mansion. The rumors are that it's haunted. Obviously, many people met their terrible, terrible deaths in that place.
And she never got punished for it. There are no consequences.
No, she got away with it. Yeah, she got away with it. And she never faced any kind of consequence to what she did, other than, rumors and stories about her even till today. I mean, we're still talking about her.
Because of her cruelty. Mm-hmm. What a horrible human being.
I know, isn't it terrible? It's just a horrible, horrible story.
Really fucked up.
And it's really, really pisses me off that she just got away with it all. And she had enough money to be able to do that back then. So, yeah. But she's in popular literature, popular television shows. I mean, she's depicted. Right. Kathy Bates did a fabulous job.
I know. That's really what I'm picturing the whole time you're talking.
I'm picturing her. I know. She was evil in that show. So I mean,
was horrible.
It was a great depiction, but for entertainment purposes. But this did happen to real people.
I just can't believe it's real.
I know. Like
why be so cruel?
I don't know.
Like
I can only imagine, like, there were rumors like people were missing organs. Like, I'm not sure if these were live people that were found either, but people were missing organs. Like, I can only imagine there's probably all these medical experiments going on with these poor enslaved people that, they bought and they considered property, that they could do anything they wanted. Yeah, that my imagination doesn't even want to go there. So, if you ever go, I would love to hear about it. Yeah, your visit to haunted New Orleans. And if anybody in the comments wants to say that they visited, if you went there, I would like to hear about that. So, but anyway, thank you very much for everyone joining us on this episode today. Thank you to True Crime Daily for hosting us. If you have not already, please hit the like or subscribe or follow button, however you're watching us. If you would like to hear more episodes of Talia and I,
yes,
you can join our Patreon.
it's a little less tame in our Patreon. We're a little more, what's the word? Raw.
Yeah.
And
that's a good word.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good word. And you can
we don't
find
have
that,
as many restrictions.
No.
Any.
From anything. You can find that on patreon.com/TNT Crimes. You can also subscribe through Apple, the Apple podcast app.
Yes. And you get one episode a week that's just exclusive to Apple Podcast and to Patreons.
And it's the same episode. So whether you sign up on Apple or whether you go to Patreon, you get the same thing. You also get the weekly episode, like this episode. It would be ad-free and early release.
Early release. So what is it? Every Thursday we release a private episode to our exclusive Patreons.
And every Friday is the new release.
Early release.
The early release without the ads and stuff. You can go to our website to find out more on that. You could also, there's merch. There's
merchandise.
You can listen online.
T-shirts that say WTF Tanya, because that used to be my favorite saying. Now I'm tamed down a bit, but I still like that.
Yeah, there's one that says it's a pisser.
Yeah, we used to say that all the time.
We do say that all the time.
This one's a pisser.
This one's a pisser. It's bad.
Or dead inside.
Mm-hmm. That one is my favorite. The dead inside. And I think that's everything. Well, we're on social media, Facebook and Instagram.
We're starting to work on that. Mm-hmm. We have a friend helping us.
Yes. So we're going to be getting that going again with new content. So I think that's everything that
that's
all the
good enough for me.
That needed to be wrapped up.
Yeah. And, we it's different when you do video than when you do audio. So it's a little bit more awkward for us to do video, but audio is where we really let loose.
We'll just let our hair down and let it all hang out.
Let it all hang out.
So until our next episode, everyone.
Don't kill each other.
Bye.
Bye.